Chicago police never really closed the case. Years after Juice WRLD's death, too many questions still lingered. Not just about how he died, but about what he left behind. His music, his words, and his true intention. But no one imagined the story would take a brutal turn because of something as simple as a rusty padlock on a forgotten property in southern Illinois, a place that seemed meaningless until someone turned a key. It all began in May 2021, almost a year and a half after that tragic day at Midway Airport. It was Carmela Wallace, his mother, who decided to take the step. Since the death of her son, she had maintained a calm and almost impassive public position. But in private, she was searching for answers, closure. And in that search, an address emerged. A garage in Joliet, 40 minutes from Chicago, where Juice used to disappear without telling anyone during the final months of his life. The property was registered under a shell company. No cameras, no nearby neighbors. An old industrial space with concrete walls and grass grown waist-high. Carmela arrived accompanied by a lawyer, a locksmith, and a representative from Grade A Productions. There was no press, no security, just a thick, rust-covered padlock hanging from the metal gate. They say Carmela touched it in silence, without saying a word. The locksmith opened it. The door slid open with a groan, and with it, something else opened too. It wasn't just a storage unit. It wasn't a hideout. It was something built with intention. The walls were covered with acoustic panels. In the center, a circular rug, surrounded by vintage speakers and a mounted microphone. There was no furniture except for a folding table with papers, a closed laptop, and an old tape recorder. Light barely entered through a small, high window covered with black fabric. In one corner, there was a figure covered with a red tarp, and beside it, a message painted by hand on the wall. "Don't cry for me. Listen to me." The lawyer tried to document what they had found, but Carmela asked him to wait. She walked slowly through the space. She recognized things. She knew her son came here. She wasn't prepared for what she saw when she lifted the tarp. It was an electric piano covered in dust. On top of it, a black leather notebook with the word "Lucid" engraved on the cover. She opened it, and on the first page, written in shaky handwriting in blue ink, it said, "If this place is open, it's because I'm gone. But if you hear me, it means I haven't left yet." Carmela stood there. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just touched the page, as if she were touching the voice of her son. What followed was methodical. The lawyer, the technician, and the label representative began to catalog everything. There were recordings, notebooks, drawings, and the strangest part, VHS tapes labeled Hotel Confessions. At the back, a shelf hidden behind a canvas curtain revealed 20 mini DV cassettes, all dated between June and December of 2019, just weeks before his death. The titles were unsettling. Connection 999. The Mirror Room. Last Freestyle Before the Jump. Addiction in 3 acts. Mom, if you're reading this? Most were labeled by hand, with drawings or symbols. Some had the number 999 crossed out and replaced with 000. One of the technicians explained that these tapes were extremely fragile. They had to be taken to a specialized studio on the north side, where they could be digitized without being damaged. But it was what they found inside a metal filing cabinet that marked the first major discovery. A folder titled Project Chronicle. Inside it, sketches of a double album, unreleased song lyrics, many unfinished, a mind map drawn in pencil with the words in the center, "Sounds for when I'm gone." Juice WRLD wasn't recording an album. He was leaving instructions. The songs touched on everything he never got to say publicly. Depression, fame, betrayal, faith, broken dreams, redemption. Some texts were written in third person, as if he were speaking about himself as a character. Others were brutal confessions, written in anger. The world wants my hits. I just want to sleep without nightmares. One of the most impactful documents was a letter sealed with black tape. It had a warning. Do not open unless you're ready to hear the truth without music. Carmela hesitated, but she opened it. It was a letter addressed to himself. Gerard, if you make it to 27, laugh. If you make it to 30, write this album. And if you don't make it, let the garage speak for you. The weight of those words was unbearable. Carmela left the place. She let the team continue the inventory, but she gave them one clear instruction. Everything found had to be preserved, not commercialized. That night, the team transported the tapes and documents to a secure location in Chicago. The news didn't leak. No one spoke, until the content of the first digitized recording was revealed. It was a home video, filmed with a handheld camera. Juice WRLD, alone in the garage, with low lighting, speaking directly to the camera. This isn't for an album. This is for when they want to know who I really was. Then he sat at the piano and began to improvise a song that had never been heard before. I wasn't a legend. I was a warning. And if you search for me on Spotify, you won't find all of me. The technician who watched that first video later said, he wasn't an artist making music. He was a kid leaving messages to his future, from his end. And that was only the beginning. When the technician returned to the garage to disassemble the piano underneath the bass, between two loose floorboards, he found a small SD memory card wrapped in medical tape. No label, no markings. They connected it to a special device. There was only one file, jwfinaltruth.mp4, a 28-minute video. No cuts, no music, just Juice WRLD in a fixed frame, talking to the camera. He was sitting on a folding chair with a tired face. He had deep bags under his eyes, a low voice, and an expression no one had seen before. Almost as if he wasn't the artist, but the human behind him. He began by saying, I don't know who's going to see this, but if you're watching it, it means I'm already gone. Then he spoke non-stop about his childhood, about how music saved him, and also how it destroyed him. He said he built that garage as a refuge, not to create hits, but to exist without being recorded, without being judged, without being idealized. He said phrases that later went viral. Everyone wanted the chart-topping Juice WRLD, but no one wanted Jared with insomnia. I'm not sad about dying. I'm sad about not knowing how to live. He spoke about his relationship with drugs, not with arrogance, but with fear. He shared an anecdote. One night, he thought his heart had stopped. He stood still for 45 seconds, waiting for it to be the end. But it wasn't. And the next day, he came to the garage and wrote, If I don't die today, I'll leave tracks for when I do. One of the strangest documents was inside a red briefcase, hidden behind a plaster panel. It was a kind of manifesto, printed on loose sheets of paper. It had the title, The Album I Never Dared to Release. And below it, a list of tracks. The Funeral of My Ego, Song for My Shadow, The Audience's Smile, God is on Pause, Letter to 40, I Wasn't a Hero, I Was a Wound, Remix with My Demons, Pretty Nobody, My Name is Jared. There were complete lyrics and handwritten notes in the margins, as if he were fighting with himself. Too dark? What if this kills my career? What if this saves someone? It was evident that this album was never meant to be released, because it wasn't made to be played. It was made to confess. Behind the speaker shelf, there was a black box locked with a code. No one knew the combination. Until Carmela, looking at one of the drawings on the walls, noticed the number 070498 repeated over and over. It was Juice's birthday. They entered the code. The box opened, and inside was something nobody expected. A Polaroid camera full of physical photos. Unfiltered, unproduced. Juice sleeping on the garage floor. Juice writing on a wooden board. Juice crying in front of a mirror, his eyes red. Juice staring directly into the camera with an expression that said, "This is me, in case you don't recognize me in the songs." There was also a photo of a piece of paper with a phrase written in marker. "Don't bury me with gold. Bury me with the truth." Because he knew time was running out. In a notebook titled Spiritual Antenna, it read, "The world talks about legends, but legends never have time to explain themselves. This is my attempt to explain myself, to save myself, to not disappear without leaving signs." With all this material in their hands, the family and the label decided not to turn it into a commercial album. They didn't title it. They didn't sell it. They created something completely different. The 999 Archive, a secure digital space accessible only by invitation, where artists, psychologists, young people with anxiety, and people who loved Juice could enter and listen to the human being behind the artist. It wasn't entertainment. It was a capsule of the soul. Inside the archive, they included fragments of the original tapes, unedited lyrics, voice notes where Juice asked questions like, "Can I be happy without fame? Is death peace or just silence?" Videos where Juice talked to the mirror and answered himself. A final video was released only to the family. In it, Juice sits in silence. He looks directly at the camera for 3 full minutes. He doesn't speak. He only breathes. And in the final minute, he says, "If this got lost, it's because the world wasn't ready. But if you're watching it, then thank you. Thank you for looking for me in places that weren't stages. Thank you for opening my door." The screen fades to black, and a final message appears. 999 is not a number. It's a coordinate, the exact place where I buried my truth. Today, the garage remains closed. No one has turned it into a museum. There are no tours, no merchandise, just a rusted door with a phrase written in white chalk. "Don't cry for me. Listen to me." And those who were there know that within those walls, Juice WRLD is still speaking. In his language, in his chaos, in his eternity.